to let him know what kinds of questions that you have. So welcome to Capital Conference 2021, and welcome now, Ben Stewart, founder and owner of SpeechWire.
Thank you so much, Jana. I appreciate it. That was a wonderful introduction. You were, as always, too generous and too kind. I'm very, very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. This truly was an honor and a privilege to be involved with the UIL tournaments that I was involved with this year. And Jana made a leap of faith working with me, and I'm so grateful that she did, because I got to learn so much from her, and I got to learn so much from all of you also, in seeing how your tournaments run and learning about the state tournaments, but also the region tournaments. And that all improved my service dramatically, just for this year, just for UIL tournaments, but it's going to improve my service going forward for anybody that I work with. And so I'm just so grateful that I got to be a part of those things. And today I'm excited to talk to you about more than just the state tournament, although being involved with that was a tremendous delight and so exciting. I want to talk to you about what it's like using SpeechWire to run your individual tournaments, your invitational tournaments if you wanted to, and also to talk about what it's like using it at district, region, and state tournaments. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up another PowerPoint. Hold on just a moment while I go ahead and get that screen share started. Share screen, and we'll throw this up there. Share. Okay, so Jana, give me a nod if you can see that slide.
Yes, I can see
Okay,
that.
great. I just want to make sure. So as Jana mentioned, my name's Ben Stewart. I live in Chicago. If there's a tape delay, I apologize, probably not. And I'm the founder and owner of SpeechWire Tournament Services. SpeechWire is basically a cloud-based service for tournaments. Those of you who interacted with it for the state tournament already know that. It's at speechwire.com. You get to it through your web browser. If you use tabroom.com at all, same idea. It's a different flavor of cloud-based speech tournament system. You'll find, because I suspect that a lot of people have some experience of varying levels with both, but you might only have experience with one or the other. You'll find that there are significant differences between platforms. Chris Palmer, who's the genius who developed tabroom.com, his brain is very different from mine. So our services are both, hopefully, people would describe them as powerful, but they're very, very different, and they work in different ways. I can't show you every cul-de-sac in SpeechWire during this time period. So I'm going to take you on kind of a walking tour of what a lot of the most important parts of the tabulation system look like. And hopefully at the end of that, you'll have a feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see kind of how this is set up. This seems intuitive enough. It seems like probably I could function in this environment. That's my goal here, is to reassure you of that. Because SpeechWire is cloud-based, there's no software to download or install. It's all through your web browser. People have told me enough times that it's fairly intuitive that I feel okay putting that on there. I always feel a little bit just like, oh yeah, sure, you say that. Okay, I've heard that from enough people that I think that's true. I say hopefully easy to learn still, because I'm just hoping that it's easy to learn. It's a paid service. It always has been since 2004 when it started. And so I view support as a priority, because I think that if you're going to be paying for something, you ought to be able to reach me. I am self-employed, so you will reach me. If you contact me, I will be the one to contact you back, unless I hire someone out of nowhere. You never know. But for now, it works out well this way. So I view being of service to you and the community as that's my job. My job is to answer emails. My job is to answer the phone during tournaments and make sure that you have what you need. So email support is free before your tournament. You can always email support@speechwire.com. In fact, you can do it later today or tomorrow if you want, if you have questions that I don't get to during this presentation. And then phone support during your tournament is also free. So typically, if there's a need for a phone call before the tournament, we can schedule something, we can have a discussion. But I try to answer as I can via email beforehand because it's a lot easier for me to get everybody's questions in that way. But yeah, I mean, if during the tournament you can't pair round one, you need to call somebody, right? You've got to get somebody on the phone. So that's why on tournament days, I'm focused on the phone. SpeechWire schedules your meet in seconds, just like any decent cloud-based system should. So you hit schedule, and when I say seconds, if your meet's pretty big, it might be literally plural, like 20 seconds. It might not be 2 seconds, but in under a minute, your meet is scheduled once all the entries are in. You can react to late changes in registration. You can react to weather problems. Isn't that a nice idea of being able to react to, maybe starting an hour late because, it's raining outside or something? Certainly not the weather problems, unfortunately, that y'all have experienced this year. Those are horrifying. And there's really, I'm just still astounded by what Jana and the UIL office pulled off with that. I don't even know what to say. Those are not the weather problems that I'm talking about responding to. I'm talking about it's raining a little bit. But you can react to late changes like that as long as they're minor, modest changes. The SpeechWire wizard, which I'll show you a little bit of, streamlines the setup process. And I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I'm going to show you kind of what it starts like and what it looks like at the beginning. And then you can import your settings from last year's meet after you run your first tournament. And that's the biggest time saver that you've got available to you, is that after you get stuff set up the first time, and again, like I said, when I'm talking about email support, I'm not just talking about like, well, you're on your own until you open registration. Like, you got to get registration open by yourself and figure out the whole wizard and get all that done. No, I mean, if you want to email me with a question about the first step of the wizard, that's totally fine. I will be happy to answer that because there are a lot of settings in it. I've had the privilege of being able to work with people from most of the states in the US now, by far most. And because of that, I've learned that everybody in the country has their own opinion about how you run a speech and debate tournament. There is no standard. When I started in Illinois, I thought, well, surely every speech tournament's just like we do it here in Illinois. And I learned that maybe Minnesota is kind of similar. And other than that, that's it. Everybody else is real different. So that's why there's just a proliferation of options in the program. And I'm always happy to help people navigate those. But once you do it the first time, you can import all of them for the next year. So the second time that you run a tournament on SpeechWire, usually the setup process goes, you get your login, you log in, you import your settings as the first step of the setup wizard, and you skip all the way to setting up registration. Like, you don't do anything else. You just put in your registration letter and open it up. The second time through, it can take like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. The first time it takes a bit longer, but again, I'm here to help. Registration is streamlined. Coaches can manage all of their invitations to tournaments from one login. So they have a login for their school. I know that for some of you guys' programs, you ended up with a couple different accounts in some cases this year, where you might have an LD account, you might have a prose and poetry account, you might have an extemp account. That totally works too. I recommend kind of trying to merge those. And certainly if anybody wants assistance with that, even over the summer, if you're like, we got 3 accounts right now, we want to try to make it into one where we all have a login, but we're all on the same one. I'd be happy to help with that too, just to try to get ready for the future. But certainly you could do it either way you want. Whichever way it is, you'll be registering your team, your entries, the students that you work with through that one login. Your coach email address is stored, and you use that to register students and judges for tournaments. Of course, the system remembers which students are on which team, and coaches can alter their entries until you, as the tournament manager, decide, okay, we're done with that. The entries are set. I'm scheduling the tournament. But you can do things like control what type of things people can change. So you can say at the start of registration, everybody can do anything. You can make it an open tournament that you don't have to be invited to. You can just let people sign themselves up for the tournament if it's an invitational, or if it's a regional and you just say like, I don't want to put everyone in manually. Like I just want to let them add themselves. And if a team from Colorado decides they want to come, I'll just tell them not to come. I mean, that's fine. That doesn't very often happen in practice. But then you can say at a certain time, we're going to lock off ads. So we're not going to let people add more entries, but we'll still permit drops and we'll still permit name changes. I'll try to show you that page, what that looks like, but it's very easy. It's just a few check boxes that allow you to tell SpeechWire what people should be able to update in the registration area. Scheduling is fast and hopefully smart. The system can be adapted on request to your local needs. I really enjoyed working with Jana on the state tournament, learning the things that needed to be done in order to get the scheduling done for that. Or I say scheduling, and the word is sectioning. I learned that too. In Texas, it's sectioning. So I'm getting better, but some of the old language snuck through here. But I can certainly work with you and work with managers to adapt the sectioning process to your local needs. That's probably actually more oriented now toward invitationals where I might have to adapt, because fortunately with the UIL districts and regions and the state tournaments now, I think that SpeechWire matches the manual pretty well. I'm still always working to get to every edge case that I can. And we identified some stuff, even during the series of just like, that could be a little bit better. But a lot of that stuff's already built into it, which is really good and saves a lot of time. SpeechWire prints easy to read schematics. This is where I say print, great, that'd be nice. That's in person. Hopefully you need to print schematics someday again, but you can also post them online, of course, whether you're in person or virtual. It can run complex time schedules or simple time schedules. So if you're running just 3 rounds, if it's an invitational tournament, if you're running a prelim and a final, if you're a UIL tournament, any of that stuff works totally fine. You can flight it any way you want to. It doesn't have to be a standard time schedule. There's a page that lets you do anything that you want with time slots. And again, I'll probably show you that too in brief in a little bit. And there's a time-tested algorithm that schedules equitably. So over the past 17 years, a lot of work has gone into figuring out the best way to do scheduling or sectioning for speech tournaments and debate tournaments. And it's always being improved, but it's been used 10,000 times. So it's done pretty well, and hopefully it would do a pretty good job for you too and not require very much adaptation. Results tabulate automatically during the meet, just like any tab program. Entry of results, if you're entering them from paper, if you're using paper ballots, is quick and intuitive, and hopefully it's quick and intuitive if you're using e-ballots too. It's a very simple e-ballot or electronic ballot. The tabulation staff can watch the results live. It supports dozens of tiebreakers. I mean, seriously, a lot. In speech, the list is ridiculously long. I'm actually going to try to prune it a bit, but that's another thing that I consult with tournament managers on often is, can you explain to me in an email what your tiebreakers are? And then I will go into the system and make sure it matches them exactly. I'm always happy to do that. This is part of the support that I try to emphasize, is to make sure that if you're confronted with a list that seems to describe ranks, like total the ranks in 10 different ways, adjust to 5 at worst, drop the worst rank, drop the best and worst rank, add up the final round ranks, drop one of the prelim ranks and add those too. I mean, there's all these different ways to do it. So I'm always happy in an email to talk about, how do you need this to happen? And then you can tab from any number of PCs or Macs. You can share that login on however many computers you want to use in order to tab. There's no limit to how many workstations you can have. Electronic ballots are relatively new to SpeechWire. They've been around for 3 or 4 years now. Obviously, I'm grateful to people, especially in, I think I would say, New Jersey, Florida, and Ohio, who told me several years ago, just like, you got to do these, like you need to add these are going to be important. And I kind of dragged my feet. Yeah, it turns out they were absolutely right, because last year wouldn't have happened without electronic ballots. So it was nice to be out ahead of that. You can choose if you want to have judges complete electronic ballots for your tournament. I say choose because, again, I'm assuming that next year will hopefully mostly be in person. And if so, then you can choose paper if you want to. You can print out your ballots and put them in folders and so on. But even for an in-person tournament, you can absolutely use electronic ballots. And there's a lot of upsides that can come along with that. If you do opt for the electronic ballots, then judges' email addresses get collected during registration. That's just something that SpeechWire does for you, is that it collects those judge email addresses. The ballots are very simple. I'm very confident in saying that. They're, if anything, they're kind of admittedly a little ugly, because I made them so basic. Like, the upside of that is I rarely get questions about them, because people just sort of look at it, and almost no matter what their familiarity with technology is, a judge typically will look at it and within a few minutes be like, oh, so I put the comments in the big box. It's like, yes, that's what you do. And then, oh, the ranks go in the rank column. Yes, yep, that's it. There's nothing else to it. So the good thing about having it be really simple is that hopefully judges just figure it out. That's definitely the goal. So far, that's generally been the experience, which is great. And then comments are delivered to coaches and students after the tournament. You as the manager kind of determine when that's going to happen. But once you're all done, you can, if you want to, give the judges an extra few hours or even overnight to go in and add more comments if they want to. They can't change their ranks or change their debate decisions, of course, but you can leave comments open for a while, but then you can close it off and then release the comments to the students and the coaches. Or you can do that right after the tournament, just like you would giving them an envelope full of critique sheets at the end of a tournament. Either way. But then the coaches can go into their coach account and they can review the comments, and the students can go into their student accounts and they can see their comments. So the coach can see all the comments for their school, and the students can see their individualized comments that were just from their sections that they took part in. And just one final note on that comments part, every coach account in SpeechWire has the option to screen the comments before they go to the students. So if you want to, you can turn that on. And then before any of those comments will go to any of your students, you can review all of them. And then you can choose to hide certain ballots if you want to. So, just like you might lose a paper ballot, you can lose an online ballot too, if that's something that you want to be screening. Although you don't have to. I leave that up to the individual coach to determine what their team policy is going to be on that. If any tournaments that use SpeechWire, the results end up going online. This is kind of it's a database of medals. So you can post your results online at the end of the tournament, and then it looks kind of like this on the screen typically, where you can see a history of the school's performance throughout the season or in past seasons, all the medals that those students have earned. And this ends up being pretty popular among students. I'm a little bit more, I don't think the word's restrictive, but I think just less open about all of the data with regard to a tournament. If you want, I will make a PDF for you, and I may eventually simplify that so it's something that you can just click a button and release, where all of the ranks and all of the names of the students and all of the everything will go out and everyone can see everything. And that's a lot, some states do that across the board, others don't. Where I came from, that would have, we still never do it in Illinois. I mean, just never, under any circumstance. And so this is what you see by default, is you see what's announced at awards, who the medalists are, who got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, who was in the debate finals, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll put the rest out there. It's just not done by default, which I think is a little bit of a difference with other platforms where I think it's a little bit more open with all the results by default. But it's a kind of a design decision where if you want it out there, that's totally fine. But by default, I don't think every tournament has every rank out necessarily. But regardless, whatever's being released, it's still a popular feature among students where a community is mostly using the platform because they can see everybody throughout the year. SpeechWire started at one invitational tournament. So that was my home tournament that I competed at when I was in high school at Wheaton North High School in Wheaton, a western suburb of Chicago. Now it runs about 1,200 every season. As Jana said, it was up a little bit this year, which was nice, but it's been pretty solid for the past several years. And I work with state finals in Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, New Jersey, Ohio, UIL in Texas, and 2 in Wisconsin. And then NITOC, the mask tournament, in the college level, the AFA, NFA, and Pi Kappa Delta national tournaments, and also the TOC extemp at Northwestern. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with all those great tournaments. It's a highlight of my year every year, getting to championship season in the spring and getting to be a part of all those great events. SpeechWire began when I was a college freshman. So I graduated from high school and I'd run the team website. And my coach came to me over the summer before I went to college and said, the website was pretty cool. Have you ever thought about running tournaments, with some sort of web platform? And I said, I have actually, but I didn't think anyone would want it. And he said, no, I'd try it for sure. Because he described to me what scheduling his tournament was like before. On Wednesday night, and he was a full-time judge. On Wednesday night, he would stay up all night, pretty much playing with index cards and his grid and trying to make all the conflicts work. And then on Thursday, you get 35 drops and have to redo a whole bunch of it. And I was astounded. I never knew that that's what went into all this, was just all these sleepless nights of trying to figure out these schedules. And so he kind of described the requirements for it. And then I sat down on my living room floor and wrote the early version of the thing. And since then, it's kind of grown. It's become a lot more complicated, but it's been fun to kind of grow with it and see how it goes, and to have that experience of working with him and getting his advice at the start too meant a lot. And it's fun that core logic is all still in there, basically. Virtual tournaments, of course, likely will remain a thing at some level. Hopefully, it's not 100% virtual because we have to. But if it is at some point, if that ends up happening again, obviously SpeechWire can still run virtual tournaments. During the past year, it had to support more than 1,000 virtual tournaments because almost every tournament this past year on SpeechWire was virtual. That includes UIL Congress Speech and LD, which I was so grateful to be a part of. And virtual tournaments on SpeechWire can be asynchronous or synchronous. Asynchronous would be pre-recorded videos on YouTube or Google Drive or something like that you paste in a link to the video, and then the judge watches that pre-recorded video for each of the students in their section and ranks them. Typically, it's certainly not done for debate. And then for debate in Congress and also for speech, you can do synchronous. And for synchronous tournaments, SpeechWire is fully integrated with NSDA Campus. It has a Zoom integration, so you can put in Zoom URLs and then have direct links to the correct Zoom call for whichever event the student is in or whichever section they're in. It knows which of the Zoom calls that are comprising your tournament it's supposed to send them to. And also a service called Yotly, which is used a little bit more in the college community, but is also a great platform for speech and debate. And I was really grateful that the NSDA included me in this. And last summer, when all this stuff was coming together and we were trying to figure out what this year was going to look like, they came to me and they said, hey, would you like to be able to have people use Campus with SpeechWire? And I said, please, yes, people would love that. They'd be so appreciative. So I'm very grateful to the National Speech and Debate Association for including me in that way. It's been great to work with them on this and a great opportunity for the community. Also, you can use SpeechWire with classrooms.cloud. It isn't fully integrated, but if you have your rooms that you're going to have in classrooms.cloud, like your room numbers, you can add them to SpeechWire just like they were physical classrooms. And then you can post your schematics with those room numbers on it, and the students can go to the correct room in classrooms.cloud. So it's not the integration that Tabroom has, I don't think, but it's absolutely possible. It's been done. I believe it was done for the state Congress meet, unless I'm mistaken. And so it's definitely feasible if you really like the classrooms.cloud platform, if you're doing a virtual tournament. You'll see what the homepage looks like shortly, so we don't need to do that slide interactively. I'll talk a little bit briefly here about UIL. So as I mentioned, used at State Congress Speech and LD. The UIL customization part can balance previous qualifying tournament and seed, and also balance speaking positions as required by UIL rules. So I, was always learning more about that, exactly what that meant. With debate, got that all figured out, and got some really good pairings, I think, at the region tournaments. And then with speech, the algorithm worked really well. I think pretty well, just kind of off the shelf. I customized it, made it even more precise for what the needs are for the UIL region tournaments, especially for those, but also for the state tournament. I believe that the algorithm did those too. And so, it takes into account the previous qualifying tournament. So that would be the district tournament they were at, if you're running a region tournament. It takes into account their seed and tries to balance the seeding levels in the competition sections. And also it can follow the speaking position varying advice as well. And then the tiebreakers can be configured to match the UIL rules. And I say I do it. I'm happy to put those in for you and make sure that those match. The speech tabulation should match the UIL, and so far it's always agreed with TalkTab, which has been really reassuring to see. And I can say that very confidently because I personally checked every single section at every tournament that used SpeechWire because I really wanted to make sure. And it was worthwhile because I rested a lot easier knowing that the two systems were in agreement, which was great to see. I mentioned a little bit of NSDA integration. I want to touch on that. NSDA automatic points reporting after tournaments is a feature. So prior to the tournament, hopefully, coaches can go into their SpeechWire account, and there's a little NSDA icon with the little guy on it. And you click on that and you can log in then to your NSDA account on the SpeechWire page. There's a little box to log into your NSDA account. That links your SpeechWire school record with your NSDA school record. So at that point, SpeechWire knows this SpeechWire account goes with this NSDA account because they authenticated successfully. After that, they can automatically link their students in their SpeechWire account to their NSDA roster. It'll try to find any whose names match exactly, and there will always be a bunch who do. But then there's always the students where they're Ben on SpeechWire, but they're Benjamin on the NSDA account. So then the coach just needs to go for each of those students and just drop down the list and find the correct student that name in SpeechWire matches with. You do that one time. And once that's done, from that point forward, every tournament on SpeechWire that you take part in, those students that you linked up, they will be auto-pointed to the NSDA. So at the end of the tournament, it's nothing the manager has to do. It's nothing the coach has to do. It just happens. The points go over to the NSDA. They'll show up in your account. You can improve them, which has been great. And I'm, again, grateful that the NSDA has worked with me to offer that. And they also, I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to offer NSDA district tabulation on SpeechWire also. It's been a few years now that that's been going on. It's been a great experience. So if you want, if you've used SpeechWire for a region meet or for an invitational meet, and you say, I want to try this at a district meet, SpeechWire can run NSDA districts under the pilot rules. And that'd be for speech, debate, Congress, the whole thing, in whatever way it's being structured. So that is definitely an option. As I touched on a little bit, my focus is on service and improvement. SpeechWire is not a free service. However, hundreds of clients at this time have so far found the cost to be fair for the services that are provided. I've been steadily working to improve it since 2004, and the code is continually sustained and improved. And it's my full-time job, so I can really focus on improving the system, answering questions, supporting the system. I as Jana kind of mentioned, I did the activity in high school, so I know the activity, it's close to my heart. It was one of my favorite things that I did in high school. And so it means a lot to be able to serve the community, be able to answer questions, be able to hopefully provide a service that's of value and that people find useful. So I'll end up this part of my presentation by just saying, if you want to learn more, you'll have some time here to ask me questions. Not right now, probably, because I do want to show you some parts of the system itself. And not like, it's not going to be you learn the whole thing because probably in 40 minutes that, I might not be able to show you every single thing in it, but I just want to get you an idea of what it looks like. You can email support@speechwire.com anytime with any questions that you might have. Even during the summer, I might be a little bit slower during the summer, but during the fall, I try to get back to you certainly within a day and make sure that I answer your question. You can order it anytime at SpeechWire.com. So there's a link on the left side of the page that says order SpeechWire, or you can go to SpeechWire.com/order in order to place an order. I'm going to stop that screen share real quick. And Jan is right. It's correct. In radio speaking, which I do not think is an event in Texas, but it was a lot of fun to do. Let me see here. I'm always bad at stopping presentations. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm going to share this other screen now so you can see my SpeechWire window. Hold on. That should be it. Okay, can you see my SpeechWire window here? Excellent. Okay, let me move this out of the way. There we go. So what I've done here with this kind of abrupt transition, admittedly, is I've switched to a new tournament. So this is what a brand new tournament looks like when you log into it after you place your order and your order gets approved. So you order, I approve the order, you get mailed a manager login, username and password specifically for your tournament, and then you go ahead and log in using the instructions in that email. And this is what the homepage looks like at first. It doesn't have very much on it because really the only thing you need is Start Wizard. So you click Start Wizard, it welcomes you to the wizard. We don't need to read all that right now. And then it says, hey, you want to import settings from a previous tournament. And I've got these test tournaments here that I could import from, but I don't want to. I'm going to skip this. If you don't have any previous tournaments, you would skip this step. And I'm going to show you what the start of the setup wizard looks like, the first few steps, just so you get a feel for what this process feels like. And then I'm going to spend more time on actually showing you the sectioning and tabulation system. So I'll skip importing and it says, okay, tell me your name and your address. Sure, update, that's fine. And now define your events. So this is where you say what events are going to be at your tournament. There's a pretty ridiculously long list, including things like bad interp, audible interp, audition monologue. There's UIL academic events. There's comic book interp. There's a lot of wild things on here, but there are also templates like the UIL speech and LD template. So if you're setting up a tournament that has UIL events, you can just use that template. And now we've got those already all set up and ready to go. But certainly if you offer more events, you can add them. And you can also add new events to that list if you want to further augment it using the link that's provided there. Then it asks what divisions. We're just going to have varsity at this tournament. So we'll go ahead and move on. Next step. Yes, I just have varsity in each event. Great. Next step. Now SpeechWire is creating a thing that it calls competition groupings, which basically is telling it how are we going to structure our divisions. Since I only have varsity, there's one grouping for each event. But if you had varsity and novice, you might have two groupings for each event. You might have varsity dramatic interpretation in one box. You might have novice dramatic interpretation in another box. They may compete completely separate from each other. However, even if you have multiple divisions like varsity and novice, you could put them both in the same competition grouping. And what that would do is it would schedule varsity and novice together in prelims. But then during a final, you could break them out into a varsity final and a novice final if you wanted to. So they're together and then they split apart. Basically, because people do tournaments so many ways, the groupings allow me to let people structure that however they want. Also, like, let's say you have a debate meet, and you have varsity, novice, and JV. You have like 3 levels of competition in Lincoln Douglas. And let's say JV has 5 entries, right? And you want to merge JV with novice. Well, this way you don't have to change all of those individual students from JV to novice. You can just add that JV division right into that competition grouping and make it novice/JV. And now it's just done. You just schedule the tournament. There's nothing else to do. So it's a helpful concept in that way. So now it's just showing me the competition groupings that got created. They look good to me, so I'll just go on. And now we tell it how many rounds we're going to have. I'll say this is an invitational tournament with 3 rounds of each speech event. I'll do 4 rounds of debate, and we'll have finals in both. We'll say save round numbers. Then we'll do next step. And we've got judges per round. It assumes 1 judge in prelims, 3 judges in finals, but you can adjust that if needed. So we'll save that. Next step. And now we'll create our tournament schedule. So if we're going to have like round 1 at 9:00 a.m. for all the events, we can do that. So now I've added that here. So round 1, 9:00, all the events. And then if we want to have round 2 of speech at 10:30 a.m., go ahead and set that up, and we'll copy round 2 over, but we won't do it for LD, and we can add that. And then let's say that round 2 of LD is going to happen at 10:00 a.m. We can do that. So, in this way, you can sort of get the idea that you can build this grid any way that you want. You don't have to have just set like everything happens at the same time. And you also don't have to create patterns ahead of time. You can basically like pattern it however you want to throughout your tournament in whatever way is most reasonable for you. I'll just move on here. This is how long each round is. So right now it's assuming everything is 45 minutes. I'm going to tell it that the speech events are 75, but that LD is 45. So you can save that. What this feeds into is how judges are used and how rooms are used. If it's an in-person tournament, or if it's on classrooms.cloud and you're using virtual rooms in much the same way. SpeechWire in this way knows if I've got a round that starts at 10:00, right? That's a speech round. And then I have an LD round going off at 10:30. If that room or that judge was used for speech at 10:00, they can't be used at 10:30 for that LD round. And this is where that all gets done. So however your event is being timed, you can set up these event lengths in order to work with whatever your plan is. But that's how it makes sure that judges don't get double used, which is, of course, tremendously important for either an in-person or a virtual meet. And now this intimidating looking page is the start of the control panel settings, and this is where I'll stop. From this point forward, there's a few control panel settings pages which have a lot of settings on them, most of which probably don't apply to you. I usually tell first-time users, click update settings and move on. And we can email about whatever those configurations might need to be. I also may try to streamline these a little bit, but over 17 years of working with a lot of people, I had to add a lot of features. So there's a lot of little bells and whistles. So there's a couple of these pages, and then after that, we talk about tiebreakers and sweepstakes and things like that. And again, like especially with sweepstakes, I'm usually involved with a first-time user to make sure that I match their sweepstakes rules if they want to run a sweepstakes at their contest. So I'm going to log out real quick of that tournament. And now I want to show you, with the remaining time in the presentation, a little bit of what the system actually looks like for a tournament that has entries in it already. So this is the home page after you've finished the wizard. There's a lot more buttons on it. There's still pictures, so I think they're still fairly easy to navigate, and I think it's easy to see what each one does and why you might need to use it. I want to show you the teams page. So again, this is a tournament that it's actually a copy of a tournament from Ohio that has speech, debate, and Congress in it. It's an invitational tournament, so it's going to have a little bit of an invitational feel to it. Multiple prelim rounds, final round, and the events are going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to, but the concepts are all going to be pretty much the same. I've changed all the names, so I'm not putting any students from Ohio on your screen. But we've got our teams here, so we've got a whole bunch of schools at the tournament. This is my teams page where I can see who's signed up to attend. If I want to, I can go to view entry spreadsheet, and I can see all of my events here across the top. So we've got Congress, middle school Congress, declamation, DI, policy debate, LD, PF, all that stuff's on here. And you can see how many entries each of these schools has, and also how many judges they've signed up to bring. If I want to edit someone's entries, I can just click on their name, and then I can see all the entries they've got. Let's say that I need to drop this duo. I can do that. I can just select drop from this little drop-down box, and then I can say update entries. And there you go. Now I've dropped that duo from this team's entry, and then I can go back to my spreadsheet. If I need to edit the judges for a team, I can click on their judges, and here we go. So now I've got my judges for this team. None of them have email addresses right now. If it was a virtual tournament or one that had e-balloting turned on, they'd all have emails, but I definitely didn't want to show you all their emails, so I got rid of those. But you can see that this tournament also uses types. So we have speech judges, policy judges, PF judges, LD judges, student Congress judges. You can structure it that way if you want, where you've got a totally set LD pool, a totally set speech pool, or you can merge them. You can bring them all together. You can have every judge judge everything if you want to. And you can also individually block judges from things. So if I go into Joanne Clayton here, and I click this blocks button, now I can say, okay, they can't judge Eastern Vermilion High School because they have a conflict with that. And they also can't judge policy because they hate it. And I don't want them judging HI or DI for whatever reason. So now this judge won't be used for any of these events. And that will just be enforced automatically. There's a button on here that'll take me to the dashboard, which is basically a place to see all my judges. So on here, on this massive page that I don't even know if you can see all of, you've got all your judges listed, and then you've got a place where you can mark them active or inactive. If they're inactive, the computer won't use them to judge. That means that they left, or they haven't arrived yet, or I'm just done using them for the tournament. They fulfilled their allotment or what have you. You can put in their availability or unavailability. So you have a number of judges here that are unavailable for certain time ranges, like Lance can't judge from 2:00 p.m. to 11 p.m. That typically just means he's leaving at 2. So that can be managed here also. And then you've got a number of blocks, and here's Joanne, and all those blocks I just put in for Joanne. I should also mention real quick that you can block students too. So if I wanted to block an individual student from a judge, I just search for part of their name. I see all these students I can block, and I say, okay, Joanne cannot judge Glenda. There we go. So now Glenda's blocked from Joanne. Joanne will not be assigned to any rounds that Glenda, the student, is in. And that's any of Glenda's events, whether it's speech or debate. That's kind of what managing entries looks like, is Teams page, entry spreadsheet, all that kind of stuff like that. During registration, I mentioned that you can control what people can update. So if you go to Registration Manager, and then the very first option here, Registration Settings, right up here, this grid is what does that. So you've got a grid, you've got a drop down that is your overall registration status. If you want no one to even be able to see registration, you set that to closed, and then no one can even get in. They can't view their information, they can't do anything. However, if you want to have it open, but you don't want to be able to change much, you can say, I don't want them adding entries. I don't want them being able to drop their whole school or add new schools. I don't want the judges to change, but I'm going to let them do drops, and I'm going to let them update their students' names if they want to. You can do update settings, and now that's done. So now that's all set and ready to go. You can set it to run as an open tournament so that anybody can sign themselves up for the tournament, or you can have it be an invitational that you have to add them to. I'd recommend the open. It can be a real pain having to add all those correct school records when sometimes people create a duplicate accidentally. That can be just a lot for a manager to handle. So I like the open, just let them sign themselves up and get their information in. So once all that information's in, your spreadsheet will look something like this. You've got all sorts of entries in, and we're going to fast forward to the tournament now, and we're going to start sectioning some rounds. So this might happen midweek if you do your speech sectioning early. It might happen 10 minutes before the round begins. Hopefully 30, or maybe 40, but you might do it at any point like that. So we'll talk about doing both debate and Congress and also speech. So we'll say scheduling manager, which is another one of these buttons on the home page. I click scheduling manager. We'll do speech first. So for speech, I say set section structure, which is the first link. This lets me tell SpeechWire how many rooms to have in each of my speech events. So there's a little number here, which is the number of sections that I'm planning to have, and then the sizes of the sections based on that number. So in deck right now, I've got 7 sections with 37 entries, and it does the math for me and says that's 5 sections of 5 and 2 sections of 6. And if I add 1, now we've got sections of 4 and 5. I don't want that. But I can take 1 away and make it 5 sections of 6 and 1 section of 7 if I want to. So that's done with these little plus and minus buttons. I'll just say that I'm okay with this setup. That's fine. And now I'll go ahead and schedule one of my events. So I've done all this. Oh, and this is also how you do Congress sectioning too, the planning for it. So I'll go to return to scheduling manager, and then I'll schedule speech and Congress. And let's just go ahead and schedule dramatic interpretation. So we'll do that. Check those 4 boxes, click schedule, and yes, schedule now. So it's working on that DI schedule, and it's done. So now I will return to the home page. I'm going to click my schematic viewer, and I'm going to bring up dramatic interpretation. And here we go. So I've got 4 prelim rounds for this tournament. I went ahead and assigned some rooms. I may or may not go into that right now, but certainly you can assign rooms. And then I've got the students in their speaking orders here for each of those rounds. The judge line is blank though, so let's take care of that. We'll go to scheduling manager. We will auto assign judges, and I'm going to do just DI. You could do all of your speech events at once if you wanted to, but I don't want to bother with all those checkboxes right now, so we will just do this. And my DI judges are now assigned. So if I go to the schematic, you'll notice they all say paper. That's because I wiped out all their email addresses because they're real people in Ohio. These aren't their names, but they were real people. And I just didn't want those on there. Your schematic, if it is, if you're using paper ballots, it won't say paper because everyone's paper. If you're an e-ballot tournament, it will not say paper because they'll all have email addresses because the coaches have to put in email addresses to register a judge. So that's just a warning. You can ignore it here because this is just a test. But you'll see that we have a judge in every room and we have students in every room. This schematic is pretty much ready to go. If I wanted to, I could use this right here to print it out. So now I've printed out, well, this is a printable schematic that I could send directly to my printer. Or I can go to the home page and click on Printing Center. And right here, this normal schematic, that's the sectioning for a round. So if I do dramatic interpretation, all rounds, I will get the same thing that I got from that other place. Other reports of numerous types are available here: seating charts, ballots, debate ballots, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you can print from the printing center. But let's say now that I want to schedule a couple other things. I'll schedule debate. So if I schedule LD round 1, give it just a moment here to figure out the pairings. Here we go. I've got my LD pairings now. It shows you what it paired. If I go back to the home page and click Scheduling Manager and do Schedule Debate and do Schedule Round 2, now give it a moment, and we've got Round 2 pairings. And then we can auto-assign judges. There's a button right there. We'll just auto-assign my LD Round 1 and 2 judges. Auto-assign, yes. And now I've got those. So if I view the schematic, again, we've got lots of paper, but they are judges. They've been assigned. I've got all my students over here and who's debating who. And I certainly hope that since it's Lincoln Douglas debate, Leah Briggs, who's affirmative in round 1, these are going in descending order due to the way the manager configured this in Ohio. I should say, since she's on the affirmative in round 2, she better be negative in round 1, and she is. So that's good. It automatically side balances in that way. But not every debate event side balances. And we can see that on the home page by going to Control Panel. which is how you reach a lot of settings. But one of the more important ones is the debate dashboard. So right here, this is how I tell SpeechWire how I'm going to structure my debate. And you've got a flip for sides column, and you can see that public forum is set to yes. So public forum will be a flip in all the rounds. You can switch that during the tournament if like round 1 and 2 are locked, but round 3 is a coin flip, like it is in UIL-LD. That's something you can change after round 2 so that round 3 gets generated without sides assigned. And then you've got your matching column. So this tournament is doing 2 rounds of preset random matchups, and then high-low power pairing for rounds 3 and on. So you can set that up any way you want. Policy is going to have ranks, and then PF and middle school PF are going to be doing points by a team as opposed to individual speaker points. But policy is going to do speaker points for each individual student. So you can, on a pretty granular level, adjust all these settings to make sure that all of your events in debate are running the way you want them to. And I'll just real briefly show you what it's like to section Congress. Same page as speech, schedule speech/Congress competition groupings in that scheduling manager. And then we'll just go ahead. I'm just going to do 1 session. So I'm going to do my first session. We'll schedule that. We'll say yes, schedule now. And then if I go ahead and view my sectioning for Congress, there we go. So here are my 4 chambers with 13 students in each chamber for congressional debate. Of course, if I schedule a second session, which I can do, and we'll just do the same page, schedule session 2, yes. Unlike speech, Congress will automatically inherit session 1. So it's going to have the same students in each chamber in session 2. What varies would be the judges. So you might have a different judge come in session 2 than was in there in session 1, or you might have 2 judges and you might change them both. Some places have a parliamentarian who stays there the whole time, but then the scorers rotate in and out. All that works out just fine in the system. So that's sectioning. I want to real briefly, and I did auto assigning judges. A couple things I want to show you before I jump into tabulation, and then before I let you ask me questions. I want to show you what it's like to adjust things, because we always need to adjust things. You've always got stuff you need to change by hand after a tournament is automatically sectioned and once the judges are automatically assigned. So let's say that in DI, I've assigned Marcia Carroll to judge this round, but Marcia needs to be replaced. Marcia's not here. Marcia's running late. Marcia decided to get coffee, and the line for coffee was around the block. So we need to replace Marcia in round 1. So I'm going to click on the letter B in my section viewer. And now I see Judge Marcia Carroll, and I've got a button here that says Detailed Judge Assigner. Once I click on that, here's my current judge, Marcia. And then here's all the other judges who are eligible to judge speech. So I know Marcia can't judge the round, so I'm going to remove her. And now I've got all these judges who say no issues. What that means is they're not currently judging anything else. And of course, the reason there are so many is because I scheduled 1 speech event. There are like 8 other ones at this tournament. So if I'd scheduled them all, there would be fewer no issues judges, because a lot of them would say, not available at time slot. That means either they're judging around already at this time, or they've been marked as not available, meaning they're not here at the tournament during that part of the day. So you want to avoid people who are not available. You want to avoid people who have student from team in section. That would be someone judging their own student. Definitely don't want that. You want to avoid blocked from team in section. So this person, for whatever reason, has been blocked from one of the schools that's in the section due to a conflict, due to knowing one of the students, due to having coached or seen at camp one of the students. And then we've got already judged a competitor, already judged this grouping. SpeechWire by default won't let a judge see an event more than once. And it also will never let a judge see the same student in the same event more than once. So it takes care of all that stuff for you. That's what all these conflicts are. So that's why we like all these no issues judges, because these judges don't have any conflicts. So I just look down the list and I say, oh, Lance would love this round, assign. So now Lance is in the round. And if I go to the schematic viewer, we now see Lance here. So that's great. And that's all ready to go. Let's say we have a late drop. Let's say that Sailor Tucker dropped from team AF2. Let's see if I can find AF quickly. There we go. So we'll do entries, dramatic interpretation. Let's see here. Who did I say? I have a terrible memory. Don't tell me. I'll just look it up. I have the worst memory. Let's see here. I said Sailor, right? Okay, cool. So let's see here. DI. Oh, did I get the wrong school? Let's see here. Oh, okay. I know what's going on. Never mind. There's, I didn't run something. Don't mind this. This is just my test stuff not working the way that it should. Hold on just a moment. Okay, cool. Test things work somewhat oddly sometimes. So if I look here, okay, now it matches. I had to refresh something. So if I go to this, let's say that Lauren Tyler from AF1 dropped. So if I go to Northeast Saffron Academy, I go to my team listing and I edit the entries for Northeast Saffron Academy. Let's say that we need to drop Lauren Tyler. So we're going to drop Lauren Tyler and we're going to click update entries. And then if I check the schematic, there we go. So you'll see that Lauren dropped out of this section and everything updated. Now, let's say that they also dropped Brian Moody. Okay, so they had 2 no-shows the morning of the tournament. This one, the first one didn't bother me in this round because I've still got sections of 5 and 6. Now I'm not so happy because I've got a section of 4 and I don't really want to have a section of 4. So what I want to do here is I want to move one of these students over here over into this section. So let's say I want to move Rodolfo. I'm going to look here and I've got a D and a D. So that's not going to be so good because Rodolfo would see a teammate. But if I take this E over there, this Clayton Mason, I know that E is a school code. This looks fine. So I'm going to move Clayton. I'm going to click on the letter C, and then I'm going to click Add Competitor down here. And all I got to do then is click on Clayton and say, yes, move them. And now Clayton has been moved to the bottom of this section. And then I can view the section and I can move Clayton up if I need to. So there we go. Because they were speaking earlier in the other section. You can always change your speaking order. Let's say that you need to make a change to a debate pairing. So I'm going to go to a debate schematic. I've got my round 2 of debate right here. And let's say that for some reason, I don't want to have 2 of these students hit each other. And I don't know what that reason would be, but for some reason, it's not going to happen. So I can click on Edit Schematic, and then I say I need to move April. So I'm going to click on April's name. Now the schematic will turn a variety of colors. So yellow means that's the student I picked up. So I've grabbed April, I've picked up April, I'm going to swap April with somebody. Red is bad. Do not swap with these people. So all these people are side-locked as neg. And if I swap with one of them, we're going to create a team conflict. Also, these other ones, these are situations where we create other conflicts. So if I swap with Z1, then it says April's going to face a teammate. And indeed, there's Leona. We don't want to have that happen. This would be especially bad. Here, they would both repeat an opponent, and they would both be judged by their own team. So that's a terrible idea. Don't make that swap. Let's say I made a bad swap. It will show up on the schematic on the manager side. It says, this is not good. They are facing a teammate. You should probably fix that. Okay, so I'm going to pick up April. I'm going to make this switch that would work well with Lonnie. So we're going to say, yes, confirm and execute swap. And now we've got Lonnie facing Leona. We've got April facing Dan. That went just fine. So in this way, you can adapt your debate schematic in whatever way you need to in order to have it set up the way that you want to have it set up. And you can also adjust your speech schedule in the way that I mentioned also. I showed you the printing center. I talked a little bit about virtual tournaments. I think you've all had some experience with virtual tournaments now, so I probably don't need to belabor that concept too much. I will mention that if you've got your tournament ready to start and you want to post stuff about it online, you can do that through this button here that says Posting Center. So by doing that, you can release, post, and blast rounds. And each of these is going to have a little go button on it. And they're all green because this is a copy of a tournament. But when you hit go, that's going to send out an email blast to the students who have student accounts and to the judges saying, this round is starting, you have a round. If it's an in-person tournament, it'll tell them what room to go to. It also puts the schematic online, so they can go to SpeechWire.com and click the little live link right at the top, and then they can see the schematic on their phone, they can see it on their computer, whatever they're using, they can see that schematic, see that sectioning, see where they're supposed to go. It will also release the e-ballots if you're using them. So it does all this stuff at once. And the last thing it does is if your tournament is virtual, let's say you're using NSDA Campus, when you hit that go button, it opens up those NSDA Campus rooms. So at that point, the students can go into their student accounts. They can click the button to go into the NSDA Campus room. The judges can go into their judge accounts. They can access the electronic ballot, and then they can go ahead and click the button to go into the NSDA Campus room also. So that's how you launch a round in this way. And that's the posting center. I do want to show tabulation a little bit. So I'm going to briefly show this tabulation, and then I'm going to switch to a copy of a UIL tournament, and I'm going to show you what UIL tabulation looks like as well, and also what UIL sectioning looks like. Again, I just made a copy, and I've changed the names of the schools. So if we go here, I'm going to just create some fake results real quick. Let's say actually first that I need to enter some results. So let's say that you're running your tournament in person, and you've opted to use paper ballots. So you have a tab room that's going to be entering those results from those paper ballots. In tab, they would click the enter results button, and then you'd be able to say, I want to enter results for DI round 1. And let's say that I've got Dale's ballot. So I click on Dale, and now it's just this term is just using ranks. It's not using speaker points. So I can just do 2, 3, 5, 4, 1, submit ranks, and now we can move on to the next one. If we're doing debate, I'll just click on Roderick's ballot. Roderick says 30, 29, and we'll say affirmative, and we'll submit results. There we go. So now Roderick's ballot's in. And in this way, you can sort of see which ballots have come in and which ones haven't. If you're doing electronic ballots, there's a button on the homepage that says balloting status. If you click on that, you can say, show me, I don't know what date it thinks it is. Here we go. 8:30 is when I ran these rounds. So these are all the 8:30 rounds, and it shows you the status of the round. So if this was an electronic tournament, these wouldn't say paper. They would either say not started, which means the judge has not hit start yet in the round, or it would be bright green with a time. That would be the time the judge hit start. That means the ballot has begun, the round is out, everything should be okay. Or it says in with this kind of forest green type color. That means the ballot's in. So that means we have those results, the ballot's been completed. So you can track an in-person paper tournament this way if you want to, but certainly you can track an electronic balloted tournament, whether it's virtual or in person, this way. This is very, very useful for doing that. It's an extremely important page to keep track of what's going on. Another page I just want to touch on in terms of tracking the tournament is judge usage. And there's also a room usage chart that's very similar. But if you click on judges and then you click view judge usage right here at the top, you can see a grid that shows you all of your judges' time situations. So Sergio is only here for the morning until 10:30, and then Sergio's gone after that, has time blocks from then on. Here's a person who's judging LD. Here's a person who's judging 2 LD rounds, Roderick, and you'll see one of them is green. That means that that round is in. So this round of Roderick's has come in. This one, Roderick has not started yet. Once Roderick clicks start, it would turn yellow to indicate that the round has begun. And then when the ballot comes in, it'll turn green. But in this way, you can see how many rounds each judge has. You can see what they're judging. And if you want to make a change, you can click on it and then click Add Change Judges. And you can remove Roderick and you can put in Cecil if you wanted to. So there we go. Now we've got Cecil judging that round instead. And if you want to, you can go back to Judges and do Judge Usage to see your grid again. So this is a really useful overview to see what your judges are doing also. Since I have some judges assigned and I don't feel like during this call entering all of these, I'm just going to make fake ranks and I'm going to do some fake debate results. And now I will show you a tab sheet. So at this point now we've got, I'm going to check my little progress page here on the view tab sheets. right from the homepage here, view tab sheets. I can say grouping tabulation progress, and I can see dramatic interpretation is done. It is 100% in for all of prelims. So if I want to, back on the view tab sheets page, the top report here is the tab sheet for dramatic interp. So if I view that, here we go. Here's all of my ranks for each of these students. Here's their rank totals, their reciprocals, because that's the tiebreaker that we chose for this tournament. Again, this is an invitational setup. This is not a UIL setup. And then opponent average rank, which is basically strength of opposition during prelims. And right now it's being sorted by code. I'll go ahead and sort it by preliminary round results. And here we go. So leading the way, we've got Victor with 3111 and first place here. And then down here at the bottom, not as good of a day for Tony, but this is kind of how this page in the tab sheet looks. And then for debate, for anyone who used Dr. Edwards' program, this will look familiar. You've got your main debate tab where you can see each of the students. I kind of structured it after his, because why wouldn't you? And you've got your points, you've got who the opponent was in that round, who the judge was, total points, and then you've got currently where the student stands in terms of their overall position as an entry. So this would be for a team debate, it would be like, how's that debate team doing? And then right below that is a speaker award. So you can also set up speaker award tiebreakers that are different from your team debate or your entry tiebreakers. So instead of looking at wins, you could just look at speaker points first, for instance. And that's why sometimes these are different. So 11th as an entry, 8th as a speaker, because you've got different ways of tabulating that. And if I want, I can look at competitors in order. So here, this tournament, it's the Ohio tiebreakers. It's a little strange to anyone who's not in Ohio because they do judge variance first. And it's like, if you know judge variance, you're like, it's kind of nutty, but it's what they do, so it's fine. We don't have to do that. So I'm going to just real quickly go in and say, let's say I want to do speaker points first. So if I do control panel and do tie breaking, and I go into debate prelims, and right now we're doing head-to-head, judge variance, drop high-low points, plus opposition wins. Let's just add total speaker points as our first tiebreaker. So now we're going to do total speaker points first. And if I go back to my tab sheet and I do Lincoln Douglas debate, and I view it, and I view competitors in order, there we go. So now we're doing our first criterion as speaker points. So all these 2-0 folks are at the top right here. And then you've got your points. And then if you high-low paired this, if you paired round 3, it would probably be pairing P1 against O4, AC6 against O3, et cetera, et cetera. And I can actually demonstrate that real quick. I can say scheduling manager, and then same page as before, schedule debate, and then schedule round 3. And you'll see we've got our 2-win bracket, our 1-win bracket, our 0-win bracket. It was an odd number here, so there's actually a pull-up. I didn't catch that, but it pulled up one of the 1-1s, and you can sort of configure how the pull-ups happen to face a 2-0. And then other than that, you've got a whole bunch of 2-0s hitting each other. You've got an 0-2 pulled up to hit a 1-1, and then you've got the 4 0-2s here at the bottom who remain. So yeah, that's power pairing. Pretty quick. If you needed to change the pairings, you can review them in order from top to bottom, and you can make changes, and it shows you the record so that you know you're not going too far outside the power as you make any changes that you need to. One more thing I want to show you with regard to running a tournament and tabulating a tournament. As I mentioned, at this point, we've got DI fully in. So DI is over right now, except we're going to have a final. So let's go ahead and create that final round. Another button here on the homepage is this one with the little medal on it, elimination rounds. If I click on that, I can select an event to make an elimination round in. I'll say DI. You can make your final round, select round. Here's a copy of that tab sheet showing all the students in order from top to bottom. And then it's got this break column. And this is all the places I can make my cut to the final round. So if I wanted to, I could take 6, I could take 8, I could take 5. I'll go ahead and just take 6. So I will make my cut to finals here. And then it says you're about to put these students into the final round. It gives you a warning if you have not actually finished the event. So if you're missing a ballot and you're trying to make a final, there will be a huge warning here that just says, this event is not done. You should not be making this final round right now. And you can stop at that point. But here you can say, yes, create round. And then if you want to, you can auto assign the judges and then view your schematic. So we've got our prelims here for DI, and then below that, we've got our final. So here's our final round speaking order. And then here are the 3 judges that SpeechWire automatically assigned. And of course, if you want to, 12:16 p.m., interesting. Wonder what they were doing. So you can also change the judges if you want to by doing detailed judge assigner. You can remove a judge, you can put in a judge. All those options, just like in prelims, are still available to you for a final round. And it's still just done through the schematic by clicking on the word final and then clicking detailed judge assigner, and you can make those changes. That's the invitational tab. The last thing I want to show you, and then we'll try to end around 3:30-ish, and I'll see if anybody's got any questions for me. I appreciate all the time that you're taking listening to me. I know it's a lot, just looking at some dude with spreadsheets. So exciting. But I appreciate your time. I want to show a UIL meet. So a copy of UIL meet. I'll start with a speech region. So again, I made a copy of a speech region. Let me again just do this real quick. And I left the tabulation intact, but the names are all different. So it'll be very similar to what you might see in a real meet. You just don't know which one or what you're looking at. So I've got my teams in. These are all the teams in my region. They are not cities in Texas. And then you've got your entries. It's the same as an invitational tournament in that way. You'll notice there's now a region column. So in this case, region is a term of art in SpeechWire. It goes back to debate regions. Like, if you're having a debate tournament, policy tournament, and you want to structure your section of the state into 8 regions and make sure the regions don't hit each other in round 1 and round 2, that's what that goes back to. This is a region tournament with regions in it. The regions are really districts. So we've got them set up right now as our districts from this region. And then if I go to the homepage and I look at a schematic, I've already sectioned this tournament. So here's my informative extemp schematic. So we've got our speaking order, we've got our districts. In brackets here, we've got the place from the district tournament. So that was their seed coming into the region. And if at some point all the districts in your region use SpeechWire, we could actually import all that directly into the region tournament so that you don't have to type any of it in. It would just know who was in what district and who got what seed. However, you can also type it in. That works fine too. If you need to just mark which school is from each district and then mark what the seeding was, the automatic algorithm will take that information into account when it creates this sectioning. So it's worth your time to do it. It's a little bit of data entry, but having it take care of that sectioning for you is very valuable. Since it shows you all this stuff though, you can still see, and this must have been a late drop here, this random district 6 at the bottom, but you can still see all of this, which student came from which district, make sure the districts are varied, make sure the seating is varied, and make sure that everything's pretty much ready to go. And then you'll see there's a final round here also, because we got all the way through to finals. And these are the 8 who made the final round in speaking order. And then these were the judges, not the real judges, who judged this round. If you look at debate, it's going to be kind of similar to the invitational setup. The big difference is that you've got, again, districts shown, you've got seating shown. So this is their district assignment, and this is the seed or the place that they qualified in from the district tournament. So once again, you can spot check and make sure that you're happy with the way that it's sectioned. You could also fully manually pair it if you want to. If you wanted to do it on cards and then translate your cards into SpeechWire so you can tabulate electronically, you can absolutely do that also. I've already gone through some of the concepts that go with that. You would section the tournament and then you just move people around. Or if you wanted to in speech, you could create your schematic manually and then just input each person into the section they're supposed to be in. I'm not going to go into that right now. I'd be happy to explain that in an email or something if that's something you needed to do. But I do want to show what the tab sheets look like, so you can sort of see what the tab part of the UIL configuration looks like. In terms of sectioning, it's the same. The same tools are used for sectioning the tournament that I showed you for that invitational style. It's just in that scheduling manager, set section structures where I tell it how many rooms I want to have, and then schedule speech competition groupings, schedule debate competition groupings, auto assign judges. It's always the same, whether it's an invitational or whether it's a UIL tournament. So then if I do want to take a look at a tab sheet, for UIL, it's a little bit different. I always use these Speech Congress Elim round tab sheets, and I click elimination round results. Let's say I want to look at my semifinal of informative extemp. That's round one. That's basically the prelim round, but we paneled it. So that's why it's running as a semifinal round. Because if it's paneled, we need to use the correct tiebreakers. It's not just if you get a 1 or a 2, you go on, or if you get a 1, you go on. There were 3 judges, we have a panel. It runs each room individually. So I'm going to view my results, and here we go. So you can see that I've got all these sections. So we've got section A, section B, section C, section D. We've got our students. They each have a little S. That means they made semis. And then some of them have an F. That means they made finals. And appropriately, the top 2 from each semi have made finals. So that's what I wanted to see. And then you've got your judges here with their codes. You've got your ranks from each judge. And then you've got these columns here. These roughly translate to TalkTab. So if you've used TalkTab before, they largely are the same. The only difference is this most 1 through 8. That is a majority column, but it's hard to show in a representation the majority bit. So this is doing the calculation in the background for the majority. And if you put it into TalkTab on that diagnostics column, you'd be able to see, how these decisions were made. But for instance, let me just take this one here. So if we think about it, gosh, I hope this is right, because it's going to be very embarrassing if it's not. You've got 3 1s in first place for Ernesto. They take first place because that's a majority of 1s, all those 1s. Then you've got nobody has a majority of 2s. So you got 1, 2 here, you've got 1, 2 here, you've got 1, 2 here. So we can't do majority of 2s. So then you go to rank total. So we've got a rank total of 10. These 2 are tied on rank total. So now we go to judge's preference in order to break the tie. And this is preferred, this is preferred. That's your tie break on judge's preference. So there you go. Steve places second, Regina places third. Now this one, we're now trying to place 4th place. So they both have 12, but the first criterion is majority of 4s. So we've got a 2 and a 4. That's a majority of 4 or better. This person has a 2, but then they have 2 5s. So at that point, this is 4th place, Belinda. And then in 5th place now, we've got 2 5s. That's going to be Chester. And then 6th place is a majority of 6s. Harry's the only one left. So that's how that ends up working. And then it's doing that in every single one of these sections. If I want to take a look at my final round had 8 people in it. But again, the same thing has been run. The tab sheet's going to look about the same. You've got your columns, you've got all your finalists, and then this is your final placement for this tournament in your speech event. In debate, it's going to be pretty similar to what I showed you earlier. You've got your debate wins and losses here. And if we check competitors in order, you've got this here too of your records. So yeah, there you go. And if you have points, you're going to see points there. If you have op wins, you're going to see that there too. But that's basically the way this all gets set up. Everything's a little bit different because it's a test. The last thing I'm going to show you real quick is Congress. I've made a copy of the state Congress meet. I hope that's okay with Jana. Again, I anonymized all of it. So we'll go ahead and do this. And then once again, just to make sure that everything matches, I'll run my little fixer. Okay, so basically I'm going to view my sectioning for Congress here. We've got our classes 1A through 6A. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at 6A. And here we go. So I've got round 1, my preliminary round. I've got all of my judges. I've got all of my students. And actually, I think those are actually real school names, I guess. So what I'm going to do real quick, or wait, are they? Are those codes? Oh no, those are student codes. That's right. Okay, let me just, I may have shown some last names of some students without any results real quick. I'm just going to auto code my competitors real fast. Wipe that stuff out. This will replace them with their fake names. So if I go here and I do 1A, there we go. We got Beck, Marianne Beck, Todd, Roxanne Todd, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is all anonymized now again. And if I view my tab sheet, here we go. So this is a full tab sheet. I'm just going to look at the preliminary session. It actually is showing the finalists on here because this tournament's done. But if I want to, I can sort this just by prelim results, and you can just sort of ignore the finals part over here because these are just the ones, some of them made finals, and this shows you what they got in the final. But here in the prelim round, you'll see it's got their ranks from the prelims all the way down to 8, and then you've got students who are ranked 9 who weren't ranked. You've got your rank total. You've got a head-to-head. So these students both had a total of 10. And then what it does is it looks at who was preferred. So you've got one preference for Dawson, 2 preferences here for Cooper, another one for Dawson, and then this one here is Cooper. And then that means that's a head-to-head win or judge's preference for Cooper. So Cooper places there. And then you've got recips and you've got the parliamentarian rank as your final tiebreaker if you need it, if you're totally tied on everything else. And then if I wanted to, I could look at the final round, and here we go. Here's our final round results right there. So that's that. It's very similar in that way. Congress sort of runs similarly to speech in many ways. You look at tab sheets in much the same way. You look at schematics in much the same way. You can make changes if you need to, et cetera, et cetera. That, I think, is most of what I wanted to talk about. We're getting up on 3:30 here. Jana, if you think it's appropriate, I'm just going to go ahead and stop, and I'll see if there are any questions. There are other topics I could probably talk about if you wanted me to. I could demonstrate an electronic ballot. I could demonstrate student accounts, but folks who took part in regions or state that might have been on SpeechWire would have already seen those things. So there may be already some familiarity with that. But I'll go ahead and I'll stop my screen share, and I will throw it to you, Jana, if you want to. And again, everyone, I appreciate your time in listening to and watching this presentation.
All right. Well, you can see that SpeechWire can do an awful lot of things, and that was a lot of data, but it gives you an idea of what you can do. We did use e-ballots. I do think e-ballots are here to stay. I don't think they're going to disappear even when the pandemic does. So if you have not seen those and you want to see them, I'm sure that Ben can do that. But let's take some time to ask questions. So if you have questions, if you're thinking about specific situations with your tournaments that you host, then be sure that you throw that in chat. I see Jonathan, who, Ben, is way up in the Panhandle, and he wants to know when it goes all the way to the coin flip on tie breaks, will SpeechWire randomly take care of that?
Yes, it can. There is a tiebreaker that can be added at the end that is random number. And that can be used in debate. If you need to do a coin flip, you can just have it do a random number. I think I believe I saw that in TRPC long ago and said, all right, we got to have that in there as a last tiebreak if we need it. If for some reason something like that were needed in speech, there's actually a way to put in a manual tiebreaker. So if for whatever reason you needed a coin flip there, you could flip a literal coin if you wanted to, and then put in a 1 for the person who won the coin flip and a 2 for the person who lost the coin flip, and then that would set that. But for debate, yes, there's a random number that is basically the same as a coin flip. And I can help set that up too if that were ever needed.
I will say this, guys, just don't wish too loudly, because if you do, instantly Ben has done it. You know, sometimes I would just sit and muse about, gee, I wish it would do this. And I guess he could hear my thoughts. I don't know. But suddenly he goes, oh, yeah, give me 5 minutes and I can get that to do that. So I will say customization for UIL was tremendous this season because, and I think the more that Ben learned about the nuances of UIL compared to other tournaments or other states, certainly instantly he was on it saying, yes, we can make this happen. And it was pretty fascinating to watch how quickly he's absolutely brilliant. What else would you like to ask?
Well, I appreciate that compliment. I'll just, it's kind of you to say that. And I think it's important for me to be responsive in that way, and to make sure that I am adapting to the community. I know that I spent a fair amount of time here showing you kind of what an invitational type setup looks like. And that's because I know a lot of parts of the state have some regular season invitational tournaments. And so, I want to reinforce that in addition to the UIL configuration, definitely that's something that's available if you want to use it. And I've been happy to work with some folks in some parts of the state on that already, for regular season UIL meets, for regular season meets. However, I hope I spent enough time, maybe I may not have, talking about exactly how a UIL region works. And just while y'all think about any questions you want to put in chat, and Jana, just FYI, I can show an electronic ballot right after this segment. Really, the setup part for a UIL meet is a lot simpler in SpeechWire than the setup for an invitational meet. And the reason for that is because the work I've done in conjunction with Jana and the UIL office in terms of learning the way it needs to be set up, so that a lot of that stuff can be done. There are templates that you can use, that you can import those settings from. So if you opt to use SpeechWire for your region tournament, you don't have to go through the whole setup wizard and try to get all those settings exactly right to match the UIL manual. You can import the settings from that template, and then 90% of it's done at that point. At that point, you need to put in your time schedule, because your time schedule might be different. And you need to put in your invitation, right? Your information about signing up. And then you just open registration and people can just sign up for the tournament. There's really not that much more to do. And I should have mentioned that earlier, very important. But that is the way that it's set up. And that was the goal, was to say, what can we do to make setup really easy for UIL tournaments? And again, it's very important to me to be responsive. And if you have a question about the UIL region or about the UIL district tournament that you're running, that you can contact me, and that I'm happy to give you information about where something's hiding, where one of those features that you need is hiding. I'm always happy to answer those questions.
Great. Throw some more questions Ben's way.
In the meantime, I will go ahead and demonstrate that electronic ballot. So let me go ahead and share the screen again. Okay, share. All right, you should see a page here that is live.speechwire.com. So speechwire.com is the main website where, I just logged in as a student. Let me log as a judge. Speechwire.com is the main website where you will go to access the calendar, to access managing a tournament, to register for tournaments. That's all at speechwire.com. During a tournament, judges and students can go to live.speechwire.com to access their virtual competition rooms if they're a student, or to access their electronic ballots if they're a judge. So I'm currently logged in as a judge, and you'll see that I have a huge number of ballots. That's because I'm me and I've been testing. So basically, if you're judging a tournament, you might have like 1 or 3 or 4 of these links. And they all have a time on them, and it says what tournament it is, and it says like what section it is. So actually what I'm going to do, I believe that I put myself in as a judge at this test tournament. So I'm going to switch over to the manager's side, and I'm going to give myself a ballot. So I'm going to go to schematic viewer. I'm going to go to dramatic interpretation. I'm going to go to this section. I'm going to take Dale out. And again, I did that through the schematic viewer, clicking on the section and then clicking on the button to detail judge assigner or assign a judge to this section. And then I'm going to find myself, because I'm pretty sure I put myself in here. Yes, I did. So it says, I have a student from this team in the section. Well, I'm going to say I'm clean and I can judge it. So assign, there we go. And then I'll go back to the home page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the posting center. Again, this is the manager. I'm going to release the e-ballots for LD round 1. I'm going to perform release. So at this point now, if I go back to my judge account, there we go. So I hit refresh, and now I've got Saturday, June January 23rd. Well, that's not quite today, but whatever. That's because it's that Ohio tournament. 8:30 a.m., room 101, test UIL conference invitational scheduling, DI round 1, section A. So this is the ballot that I just got. We should say June 29th, but again, this tournament in Ohio was on January 23rd. And we're going to click on it. So it starts by saying, to begin, please enter a phone number that the management of this tournament can reach you at if needed, and submit phone number. So I'll put in the tech support number, and then you'll be subscribed to text alerts unless you opt out below. So from that point forward in the tournament, if I opt in to these text alerts, then every time I get a ballot, I'll be sent a text message. Judges are always sent an email, and they can also subscribe to themselves ahead of time, but they're given this opportunity to get text messages the first time that they open up their e-ballot, so that they can make sure for the rest of the tournament that they know when they're judging. So I'll go ahead and say, sure, I'll get text alerts, that's fine. And then I say submit phone number. So now it says, here's the speaking order in the round. Here's the information about the section. And then you've got this great big link here that says click here to start the round. So when I click this, that tells the tab room that I've begun the round. Let's see what that looks like. This is, again, what the tab room interface looks like. And I'm going to click on balloting status, and then I'm going to click on 8:30. So we've got all these results that are in because I put in those fake results. But then I've got this one round that has not started yet. So this is me in room 101, and this round has not started. Well, I'm in my judge account, and now I'm going to say click here to start the round. Boom. Now, this may update. There you go, it updated by itself. So it says 4:36 p.m. It's Ohio time. So it's 3:36 here. But this is when the round started. If you're running in Central Time, it would say 3:36. In fact, let's just, let's make it Central Time. Tournament information, US Central update. And then if I view it again, 3:36. There you go. So that's when I hit start, was 3:36 p.m. And then in here, now I've got my ballot. So this was the manager's side because I'm testing judging. Here's what my judge ballot looks like. You can see it's a pretty simple setup. They collected some titles, but not everyone did it. A UIL meet, if you were telling people you need to put in titles, these would all have a title because everybody would have put in their titles. If you didn't collect titles, none of them would have a title, but a couple of these have a title just because some coaches wanted to and some didn't. And then again, very simple setup, speaking order here, student name, student code. You've got a link to edit comments for each of these students, and then you've got a rank column. So during the round, what I can do is I can say, okay, it's Rodolfo. We're going to say edit comments for Rodolfo. And then we're going to say, this was a good speech. Slow down a little. Whatever comments you might have. And then we can put in our performance time. And then you say save comments. So there we go. So now we've got these comments here are in for Rodolfo. We can move on to Jean. Let's say that I put in some comments for Jean. And I put in some comments for Victoria. But then I'm running behind. I'm trying to judge the round, but I'm not the quickest typist. So I don't get comments in for these two, but it's now time for me to rank the round because the round is over. You can rank the round without putting in the comments and then put in comments later, or you can add more comments later. So, Tab needs my ranks. Tab needs to know that the round is over. Tab's still sitting here looking at this saying everything else is in. What's this guy doing? This thing should have been done already. So we say, okay, we're going to do 2, 5. Let's actually do a 5, 4, 3, 1. So those are my ranks. I hit save ballot. There you go. That locks them in. I cannot change them. They are set. That's just what it is. If I make a mistake, if I'm looking at my ballot here as a judge and I say, this was supposed to be switched, this 1 and this 2, you have to contact Tab. We don't want judges just changing ranks in the middle of the tournament. If they contact Tab, then you and Tab can make a change. So if I go to the homepage and I've got Rodolfo on the phone and Rodolfo says, I messed up, my 1 and my 2 are flipped, you say enter results. You say dramatic interpretation round 1, enter results. We're going to go to, Rodolfo was the student. I am the judge. I messed it up, not Rodolfo. So we want to give Rodolfo the 1. He was actually great, and give Barry the 2. And then we say, okay, Ben, are you sure? 15432? Yes, that's correct. Submit. So now over here, if I check my ballot again, if I go out of it and come back in, now it's updated. Rodolfo has the 1 and Barry has the 2. But again, the judge didn't do that. The tab staff did that. If there's going to be a change on a ballot for ranks, the judge has to contact tab so that tab knows what the heck's going on, that judges aren't just going in making changes. However, let's say that I want to add comments now for Archie, who I gave the 3 to. I can still do that. I can still go in and say, here are comments for Archie, and save comments. Okay, so in that way, you know your progress, you know kind of how you've been doing in terms of putting in those comments. And then now if I go to my balloting status on the tab side, and I look at, I think it was 8:30, there you go, everything's in. So at this point now, this time slot's done. We got all the ballots for this time slot, everything's good. I will also just real quick demonstrate a debate e-ballot. So we're going to pull Calvin out of here, and I'm going to put myself in once again. I am right here, assign, go back to the schematic viewer. So now I've got this round 1 ballot, and I'm going to go ahead and release my e-ballots for round 1 of LD, perform release. And if I look at my homepage, here we go. Now I've got this LD round right here. So I'm going to go ahead. This is again on the judge's side. I'm going to open this LD round, and it says, here are my debaters. So if you want to take attendance prior to clicking start, you can do that. But then once the round starts, you click here to start the round. Again, this setup might be a little bit different than it would be for a UIL meet, just because this was an invitational. But this is a Lincoln Douglas debate. It's locked sides. So Gordon here is on the affirmative. Christie is on the negative. We've got a time limit order of speeches here for you to reference. And then you've got comments for Gordon, comments for Christie, and your reason for decision. And then above that, of course, you have your points and you have your winning debater. So the point scale here, they've set a point scale for this tournament of 20 to 30. So I'll say 30 for Gordon. We'll say 29 for Christie. I'm going to say Christie won. And then it says, you marked a low point win. Make sure that you're sure about that. And I say, oh, I was wrong. I did mean Gordon. Okay, good. So now I mark Gordon as the winner, and then I can save the ballot. So at that point, now that ballot's been saved. You can see you can't change this. These became text, so I can't make any changes to my decision. I can't make any changes to my points, but I can still put in comments, and I can still put in my RFD if I need to. So I can watch the debate. I could even take notes on paper if I wanted to, and I can put it in the decision so that the tab room can pair the next round, but then I can come back in and I can transcribe my comments and transcribe my RFD into here. The last thing I'll show real quick that I've totally forgot to show was the electronic ballot control panel for managers. So if you're running an electronic ballots tournament or a virtual tournament, you have some tools that you can use to set up those electronic ballots to make sure that they come in the way that you want them to. So on the homepage here, you click that control panel button, and then this button right here, e-balloting and video settings. So on this page, I can pick a platform. So I can choose if I want to use NSDA Campus, for instance, if I want to use e-ballots, if I want to let people subscribe, if I want to let judges subscribe, if I want to post schematics online. This isn't relevant to me really. Sure, I'll show the implicit bias statement from the NSDA, that's fine. You can choose to use speaker points in speech, and you can set a range. So if I did want to use speaker points, I could say it's going to go from, say, 70 to 100. Allow ties on speaker points, allow points to go out of order, etc. And then probably more important for y'all is the debate configuration. So you can say, for each debate division, what's my point range? Do I want to use whole numbers, half points, tenths of points? You can say this middle school public forum goes from 1 to 30 for some reason, but the other events go from 20 to 30. That's totally okay. You can choose to show a time reference on it, so on and so forth. So there you go. And that's how you configure your e-ballots. And then the last thing I'll show, I didn't actually release the NSDA campus round because I didn't have it set up. But let's say you were running on NSDA campus. Once you go ahead and launch your round, I'll just do a DI here. If you go into your judge ballot and the tournament is virtual and you open this up, you'll see that there's a little button here that says Open NSDA Campus Room. So all you got to do is click on that. And at that point now, I'm in the NSDA campus room here. So the students would pop in and so on. So that's the way that SpeechWire is fully integrated with NSDA campus. On the student side, they just go into their student account and they click on the name of the tournament, and then they can go ahead and access their NSDA campus rooms for the tournament. So I'll throw it back to Jana.
All right, Ben, gosh, we could sit and listen to you forever, and I wish we had more time, but we do have audience coming in for the next session, and we need to set up those panelists. It's a panel, so we've got to make sure that all those folks can get in. And I know we're having bad weather in lots of places, including my house. You may hear the thunder. So I know there's some connectivity issues, but we thank you so much for your time. Obviously, SpeechWire can sing and dance and do a little bit of everything to run tournaments efficiently. You may have been overwhelmed with all the different features today, but I think that shows you just how comprehensive SpeechWire is and something that you would definitely want to take a look at. Ben is amazing at answering emails, so I really encourage you to follow up. I know that Jonathan had some more questions and wanted to see a few more things. And also, I think Ben would welcome your questions, even though we cannot do them online today, so we can move to the next session and get that started on time. But Ben, thanks. I hope the weather's great in Chicago, and we look forward to working with you this year.
Well, thank you very much, Jana. Thank you so much, all of you, for your time. I do have a tendency to try to show everything, and so I apologize for that. I could have restricted it a bit, but hopefully, as Jana said, you look at it and hopefully you think, yeah, that could probably run my tournament, and hopefully you also think, I could probably figure that out too. And if not, Ben will be there to help me. So I'll let you all move on, and thank you so much.
And that's the last thing I will say. If you want excellent customer service, Ben definitely gave that to us this year. So do not feel overwhelmed by all the different features you see. He will go back and explain those and help you with them throughout your process of a tournament, should you choose to use SpeechWire. So again, Ben, thanks so much. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you soon.